Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Unitarian Congregation of Men. My name is Matthew Mary, and I'm going to be starting off this morning with Georgia on My Mind by Ray Joss. Thank you.
Good morning, and welcome as we gather this morning, a day that certainly tells us that fall is on its way, or perhaps here a day or two early. We are continuing with virtual services, and we invite you to join us. I'd like to begin the service today with these opening words by Robert French Levins that I have adapted. Holy and beautiful the custom which brings us together to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened and to be strengthened. Through this quiet hour breathes the worship of ages, the music of history. Three unseen guests attend: faith, hope, and love. Let all of our hearts prepare a place for them.
This next piece will be the second movement from Beethoven's 23rd Piano Sonata, the Appassionata.
is our custom as we gather to kindle a flame in our midst. A flame long the symbol of the presence of the holy. A flame long the symbol of knowledge and of wisdom. And we kindle this flame in a chalice, a shared cup. For each time we gather seeking to make our lives and the lives of those around us more whole and holy. We gather seeking wisdom and knowledge. We gather seeking to hear ideas which are different from our own, to be challenged, to be celebrated, to be together as a loving community. I invite us to say the words of our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Normally at this time in our service, we would invite you to come forward, lighting a candle and sharing, if you wish, a milestone, a joy, a sorrow in your life. However, since we are in virtual mode at this point, we invite you through the chat room or through email to send your joys, your sorrows, your milestones, and later in the service, we will light candles and share those joys, sorrows, and milestones. Today I thought I would read to you a poem by Mary Oliver. It's entitled, Walking to Oakhead Pond and Thinking of the Ponds I Will Visit in the Next Days and Weeks. Again, by Mary Oliver. What is so utterly invisible as tomorrow? Not love, not the wind, not the inside of a stone, not anything. And yet how often I'm fooled. I'm wading along in the sunlight, and I'm sure I can see the fields and ponds shining days ahead. I can see the light spilling like a shower of meteors into the next week's trees, and I plan to be there soon. And so far, I am just that lucky. My legs splashing over the edge of darkness, my heart on fire. I don't know where such certainty comes from. The brave flesh or the theater of the mind. But if I had to guess, I would say that only what the soul is supposed to be could send us forth with such cheer, and even the leaf must wear as it unfurls its fragrant body and shines against the hard possibility of stoppage, which day after day, before such brisk corpuscular belief, shudders and gives way.
This next song would be When We Meet Again. This would be by Bill Evans. This song was written actually in dedication to Bill Evans' brother, who actually died a year prior to his own death. So this would be We'll Meet Again.
a moment. As the seasons change, as the heat that we have had so much of this past summer gives way to cooler weather, let us rejoice in the change of season to the beauty of fall, which is coming on Tuesday. Let us give thanks for the seasons. And let us give thanks for those little breaks that we get. For according to weather reports, the end of this week is supposed to again be in the 80s. Let's remember the beauty that we find in our lives, the beauty that calls us to be with others, that calls us to be in community, that calls us to love and to welcoming, to be together. Amen. The title of my sermon today is Saying Goodbye. And yet, as I think about it, perhaps that's not the title I would have given it if I had finished the sermon before I gave the title. I might have said, what do you say before you say goodbye? In May of 2018, at our annual congregational meeting, I was asked a question that I did not expect and was not prepared to answer. How long are you planning on staying here? I was asked. I must admit that at the time I had been thinking some about retiring. My younger brother was in a retirement process that will end this December. What a great deal he got. He's a teacher at Bentley University. And for 3 years, he has been working only one semester each year and receiving full pay and benefits. Still, I was enjoying our time together here. But still, how long would my health still permit me to travel and do the things that I had hoped to be able to do? None of us is ever really able to know that, but it is worth considering. But still, how to answer that question? Now, this was a time for a smart answer. If I had been wise, I would have said simply, forever. But I wasn't that quick. And so I answered that I would be willing to retire at the end of June of that year, if the congregation wished, or that I would be willing to stay on for one more year. It felt good to have almost everyone, perhaps even everyone, ask me to stay on for another year. None of us were thinking of COVID-19 at the time. Under usual circumstances, I would have, if I were planning to retire or to leave for any other reason, I would begin to consult with some members of the board by early March, and then in late March or early April announce to the congregation that I would be leaving. That would give me enough time to help the board to plan for the time until a replacement could be in place, and a time to say goodbye. I always pictured that as a time that would be fun, a bit sad, of course. But I had hoped that the time of my leaving would be a time to celebrate things that had happened during my presence here, and a time that I could look forward to different activities. Since my brother is retiring in the end of this year, I hoped that I would be available so that we could travel together. And I had hoped that we would have a party. The shirt that I'm wearing today, we used at the first of our annual start of the season picnics that were open to the whole community. And that first year, we had a number of people who were not part of our congregation who came and joined with us. We had a lot of children and games to celebrate. This shirt that I'm wearing, we distributed at that picnic. And that's how I had planned to leave. A party. A last meeting with the Alliance. A last board meeting. At least a larger than usual coffee hour. But that's not going to happen. We should have planned for a summer visit to Sturbridge Village. Perhaps we could have had a service in the church there. There were other things that we could have done, should have done during this past year, but that didn't happen. Instead, we had to deal with COVID-19. We've had these virtual services, and there are a lot of good things about them. There are probably several people, at least around the world, that are listening to our service, and others who live far enough away that they could never attend our services in person. But there are disadvantages too. We thought of having regular services now, but the UUA recommends against it. And the Massachusetts guidelines, at least at this point, say that for gatherings such as church services, we would need to enforce social distancing. Not difficult in this large room, but we would find ourselves socially isolated, I think. We would also have to sanitize every part of the building that was touched by visitors. We would have to clean the restrooms after every person used them. Something that certainly is not possible for us right now. This pandemic is destructive in so many ways. So many things that we might do, so many things that we ordinarily do, and some of them turn from joyful, glad occasions to sadness. We come together for the birth of children. We come together for marriages. We come together to remember the death of those among us. All things which are now almost impossible to do. There was that wedding in Maine, which resulted in 174 cases of COVID-19 with 7 deaths. When our friends and family are hospitalized, often we can't visit them, or in nursing homes. Our usual rituals are denied us. This week I was talking to my doctor. His parents are in their mid-90s. They were in an assisted living facility, and his mother is still there. But his father has been ill and is not doing well and is now in a nursing home. His mother, who shared 60-some years of marriage with him, is unable to see him. Well, I'm not an expert on the technology available. I suggested that perhaps using Zoom conversations or something like that would be helpful, but they won't work. And Jay and his wife need to get an appointment to visit the parents. And often that is only every 3 or 4 weeks. How destructive to the relationships that we share near the end of life. I heard recently of a family that rented a bucket truck so that their father could be lifted up to the 3rd floor window of the room where his wife stayed, and that they could each reach out and touch the glass on the inside and outside. No way of actually visiting. And so it's true for us. I had always pictured that we would be near each other, that we could touch each other, that we could say goodbye in person, that we could share some private time. And yet, it seems that that is largely impossible. Oh, there are phone calls and there are notes. I'll be sending some of those out, and I hope that some of you will. But phone calls and notes are not like being in the same room. They're not like being in a place where we can see each other's expressions, where we can touch. But I'm getting off track here. What is it that we do say at our party? Oh, I'm not leaving right away. I still will be here for another 3 weeks of services. But what will we say, or what have we said? Dr. Eric Byrne wrote a book some time ago, What Do You Say After You Say Hello? It was about transactional analysis and the fact that as early in our lives we experience things, we build a script, and the things that we say for most of the rest of our lives come at least part from that. And I really thought that perhaps what my sermon title should have been What do you say before you leave, before you say goodbye? And as I think about it, I think that everything we say is really goodbye. The times we share, the times we are together, the times that we work together, the times that we learn together, all of those are preparations for our goodbye. So let's think back. Let's think back with gratitude for the pleasures that we have shared. Let's look back and think of things that we might have done, that we might have said. The time of parting should have been a time when I could wear my "Let's Have a Party" shirt. It should be a time of celebration, as much as sadness in parting. I will miss being with the members of this congregation. We've shared what have been for me 15 wonderful years. I have so much to remember of the gifts that you have given me. I have so much to remember of the good times that we've shared. I have a good deal to remember of times that we have disagreed, that we have struggled to find unity. But all of the times together have been times of learning, times of sharing, times of caring, times of love. As the time of my leaving approaches, let's be in touch. Let's share the things that we wish. I'll be here until the middle of October. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone. Don't hesitate to drop me a note or email me or text me. And I will do the same for you. If we know each other less well than we should, let's take a few weeks and learn to know each other better. Let us use this time to have a party, at least virtually, giving to each other the joys, the possibilities, as we each go our separate ways. Do we have joys and sorrows? From Bill and Chris Vieira, a candle of joy for the wedding of my son Zach to Chantal yesterday in Chicago. We were able to watch on Zoom. Please join Leslie Cape for an autumn equinox celebration today from 1 to 3 at West Hill Dam in Uxbridge. bring lawn chairs and snacks. And also from Leslie, a candle of joy for the fall equinox this week. The one with which I passionately join, a candle of joy and a concern for the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a candle of joy for her shining example, but a candle of concern for her passing. To suggest that finding a replacement for her will be difficult is a gross understatement. A candle of joy for the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a joy for her shining example, a concern for her passing. Let us all celebrate the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who against all odds became a justice of the Supreme Court, who stood always for the rights of those who are so often passed over, a person who sought always for peace and justice for all people. And finally, a candle for those members of our congregation whom we would see in person, but instead we see only in our minds as we think of the congregation as we wish it could be gathered. And now, as we extinguish the flame that we kindle at our gathering, may it burn on in our hearts and in our minds. May we be filled with the joy of community. May we be filled with the challenge of working to make of this world a place where all find a place that is safe, a place that is welcoming, a place that endures.
Thank you, Ralph. I'm going to be ending off today, guys, with some of my favorite kind of mixes. This is going to be a Poplar's tune with jazz mixed into it. This will be All My Lovin', jazz transcription. so much.